everybody, it's Stacy with R&R Ranch, and today is the very first day of our children's reading series that we are doing this summer. So before we get started, I want to say a couple of things to any of the parents who are listening as well. We'd love to know your feedback on this to help us make this a really fun time. So in order to do that, we'd love to know books that you may want us to read. We would also like to know age ranges of kids that are listening, because it's kind of difficult to choose a book that is appropriate for all ages and length of time. So any information that you can give back to us would help us make this a really fun thing to do for the kids. So for kids today, we are reading a book called Black Beauty. It was written a long time ago by a person named Anna Sewell. And she really was the first person to write a book that really wrote a story about how animals can be taken very good care of, and sometimes they can be taken their care is not so good. And it was really a breakthrough book that kind of opened up a lot of people's eyes on the care that animals are receiving, horses in particular. So I read this book when I was young. I was in elementary school and I read the full book. Okay, so we have that at home. I couldn't find it, but it's a very big, long story. And then here's something like this. This is an adaptation for kids through Great Illustrated Classics, which is a wonderful kind of children's reader. It's got very big print and it's got pictures on just about every page, but it's a long story in this version. It's well over 200 pages. So I thought this would be too long to read. This would take us a couple of different sittings, and I wasn't sure you guys wanted to do it, but it goes into much more depth. So given that I couldn't get mail quickly from ordering a younger children's book online, I am actually reading it off of my iPad. I'm going to hope that I don't read any more books off of an iPad, because that's not what we're all about. We like the way a book looks, we like the way a book feels, we like the way the pages turn, and you can have a sense of accomplishment when you put your bookmark in here and you know where you've stopped, and then you can see again on the next time you stop reading, you know where you're at there. So we like books and we want to use books going forward, but today it's going to be on an iPad. Okay, so I'm sitting outside. I've got 3 of the babies with me. We've got Booker over in the next to the fence. Baker is right here, and Martha is right here. So they're going to hang out, and then we are going to read this book. I'll show you the pictures, and then when we're done, we're going to go talk about a couple of our horses that we have that have a very similar life experience to Black Beauty. Okay, so I'll read it and then I'll show you the pictures, okay? Here we go. My name is Black Beauty. The first place I remember was a large, pleasant meadow. I was too young to eat grass, so I lived on my mother's milk. There were other young colts in the meadow. I loved to run and play with them. You come from a fine family, my mother said. I hope you do your work well and never learn bad ways. And here's a picture, if you can see it. This is Black Beauty with his mother, and here are the other baby horses in the meadow. One day, a pack of dogs raced across the field. Many men followed on horseback. They're hunting a rabbit, my mother explained. And that's what that looked like. Suddenly, 2 horses stumbled. Their riders fell head over heels to the ground. A beautiful black horse lay moaning on the grass. A doctor came. He shook his head. His leg is broken. Suddenly, a gun went off. Bang! Then all was still, and the black horse didn't move. I knew that horse, my mother said quietly. His name was Rob Roy. That was all she said. But she never went to that part of the meadow again. You can see the horse fell, and this is the doctor, the vet. In time, I grew quite handsome. My coat was shiny and black. I had one white foot and a pretty white star on my forehead. One day, Farmer Gray decided it was time to break me in. He talked gently and gave me oats. Then he put a bit in my mouth. I didn't like the taste of it. Next came the saddle. It wasn't so bad. There you can see Black Beauty's growing up, and this is a bit that goes in the horse's mouth, and there's his saddle. I learned to wear a harness and a bridle with blinkers. Now I could see only straight ahead. Worst of all were the horseshoes. They made my feet feel stiff and heavy. Farmer Gray rode me around the meadow. How strange it felt. But I was proud to carry my master. My mother said, "Some men are kind, like our master. Others are not. A horse never knows who will buy him." I had no idea then, but soon I would leave my first home. There he is being ridden by his owner, and here he is talking with his mother. Squire Gordon bought me. Oh, how Mrs. Gordon loved me. She said, "He is such a beauty with his black coat and sweet face. Let's call him Black Beauty." John, the groom, stared at me. "Why, he looks just like our old Rob Roy." "Didn't you know?" said Squire Gordon. They had the same mother. So Rob Roy was my brother. No wonder my mother was so sad that day. Horses have no family, I thought. At least not after they're sold. There he is with his new family, Squire Gordon. One night, I woke to hear John calling, "Wake up, Black Beauty. Mrs. Gordon is very sick. We must race to get to the doctor." The air was frosty and the moon was bright. For 7 miles, I ran like the wind. At last, we reached the doctor's house in town. "My son has taken my horse," the doctor told John. "May I ride yours?" John stroked my neck. He knew I was hot and tired, but at last he said, I guess there's no other way." So the doctor jumped into the saddle and off we went. There he is being woken up, and there he is taking off again after a long ride. By the time we got home, I was covered with sweat. My legs were shaking. A young boy named Joe Green led me to the barn. Joe was new. He didn't know what to do. Joe did not put my blanket on me. He gave me cold water. John would have given me something warm to drink. There's Joe Green, taking care of him even though he doesn't know what to do. I lay down and tried to sleep. I could not stop shaking. I wished for John, but he had to walk all the way back from town. Just before dawn, John came. "Beauty," he cried, and ran to my side. He covered me with a warm blanket and made me something warm to drink. Even so, I was sick for a long time. Every day, young Joe Green came to see me. "Poor Black Beauty," he said. "Did you know you saved Mrs. Gordon's life?" How glad I was to hear that. Joe Green worked hard to learn the right way to take care of the horses, and soon I got better. But Mrs. Gordon was never the same. The doctor said she and Squire Gordon must move to a warmer place. And so I was sold again. My new owner was an earl. He changed my name to Baron. On the first day, I had a horse named Ginger, and I were hooked to a fine carriage. Soon the earl's wife stormed down the steps. "Pull those horses' heads higher," she shouted at the groom. See, there he is, hooked up to a carriage with Ginger. And the earl's wife wants their heads up higher. The groom tightened my reins. Oh, the bit cut my mouth. But Ginger would not stand for it. She began to fight and kick. The earl was so angry he sent Ginger away. And from then on, I worked alone. One weekend, a groom named Smith rode me into town on business. It was dark when we headed home. He did not see that I had a loose shoe. Smith whipped me to go faster. So there's Ginger, not agreeing to hold her head higher. It hurt. And there's Beauty when he lost his shoe. Then the shoe flew off. The rough stones cut into my hoof. Soon the pain was too much to bear, and I stumbled to my knees, and Smith fell to the ground. The next day the doctor came. "This horse will be able to work," he said, "but he will always have scars." The earl flew into a rage. "I will not keep a scarred horse in my stables." And so I was sold again. I was lucky. A man with kind eyes bought me. He did not care about the scars. The man's name was Jerry, and he decided to call me Jack. Jerry took me to London. What a fancy big city it was. I had never seen so many horses and carriages, or so many people. Jerry turned down a narrow street of poor-looking houses. Suddenly, a door flew open. One outran his family to greet me. "What a beauty!" his wife cried, and the children kissed me and petted me. And I thought, I am going to be happy at last. Jerry owned a cab. Rich people in fine clothes paid us to drive them around. It was hard work at first. I was not used to the busy streets of London. But Jerry was a good driver, and we made a fine team. "Good job, Jack," he would always say. Soon it was Christmas, but there was no holiday for us. We took some fine gentlemen to a party. It was bitter cold, and we had to wait and wait. It was long past midnight when we got home. Jerry led me back to my stable. Jerry had a bad cough, but still he took the time to care for me. After that night, there was no work for days. Jerry was too sick. At last he grew stronger, but the doctor said he could not drive his cab anymore. Jerry and his family made plans to move to the country. At first, I was so excited. But then I learned that Jerry and his family could not take me with them, and it broke my heart to say goodbye. After that, I was sold many times. Each time I had a new name. One master was a man named Skinner, and he owned cabs. One One evening, Skinner picked up a large family. They had so many boxes and bags. "Oh, Papa," said the little girl, "this poor horse cannot pull all of our things." "Sure he can," Skinner said. I was so tired. I had not eaten or rested all day, but I did my best. We came to a big hill. The load was so heavy. Skinner pulled hard on the reins. When I slowed down, he got angry and he whipped me. Finally, I couldn't take another step and I fell to the ground. I was given 10 days to rest. Then Skinner sent me to a horse fair. This time, I was put in with the old, broken down horses. "This horse has seen better days," an old gentleman said. "He must have been a beauty when he was young." "Poor thing," said his grandson, Willie. "Can we buy him? I'm sure he will grow young in our meadows." The old man laughed. "You love horses as much as me." Then he pulled out his purse. So there he is, waiting to be sold again. The old man and Willie took me home. They called me Old Crony, and they took good care of me. I ran free in their meadows. By spring, I was strong enough to pull a small cart. "You were right, Willie," the old man said. "He is growing young. I know the perfect home for him." The next morning, I was taken to a nearby house. 3 sisters lived there. The groom was cleaning my face. Suddenly, he gasped. "Why, I'd know that white star anywhere. Black Beauty! Don't you know me? I'm Joe Green." I stared at him. He looked like a young Joe Green, only with black whiskers. Young Joe Green was now a man. So here I stay. My work is easy, and Joe is the best of grooms. The ladies promise never to sell me, and best of all, everyone calls me by my old name again, Black Beauty. And that's the end. That's the end of Black Beauty. So I read it, and I didn't cry, only because it's probably this little children's version. But Black Beauty, if you are older and you want to read a more in-depth story of it like this, or if you're even a teenager and you want to read the full version of Black Beauty, I can guarantee with certainty that you will cry. The author is very good at drawing you into Black Beauty's life, and she tells the story from the horse's perspective. So it's very interesting to read, and you feel a lot of emotions, and that's the mark of a good writer. When they make you feel emotions, they can make you laugh, they can make you scared, and they can make you cry. So Black Beauty is a wonderful story to read the full version. It's also a wonderful movie. I could only watch it once. I could only read the story once. It's too hard for me. But Black Beauty is the cornerstone of why we have all these horses. We have all these horses that live here with us, We have horses that have come from people that have owned them and sold them and sold them and sold them, and they finally ended here. So we have horses that have had a very similar life to Black Beauty. Some people that have been good owners, some people that have been bad owners. And we like to be able to be a good owner and give them a happy life to live with us. But we also have horses that don't live with us, but we still own them because we don't want to sell them. We don't want there to be a chance that Belle's first pony, who's over 30 years old now, could be sold to someone who wouldn't take good care of him. So we still own him. And he lives somewhere else, and we pay someone to take care of him. And the same thing goes for her horses that she has outgrown. She doesn't ride anymore. We didn't sell them. We pay someone else to take care of them, and they live a very happy life in a retired field. They come in, they sleep in a nice warm barn every night, and we still own them. And they will never know a bad life. So that's one thing you have to remember when you do have a horse. They live a really long time, and you have to be prepared for that kind of a commitment. Because once you sell a horse, you never know what's going to happen with them. You can never be for certain where they live and how they're treated. So we have horses here that have been through a lot of bad owners, and we give them a good home now. And I encourage all of you to read the full story of Black Beauty or watch the movie. And I would definitely say have your Kleenex nearby, and you will get the full story. So thank you so much for joining us for our first book reading. We will do another one next Wednesday at the same time, 10:30 Central Time. And we will also put this so it will be available for you to see and watch again if you want to, or watch at a later time on YouTube, our YouTube channel. Again, parents, please comment, let us know the ages of your kids, the level of reading that they're interested in, the length of stories, and any story titles, because we'd love to hear. You guys have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.